Welcome to Interface. My name is Thembi Samachele, and we're talking tourism this week as Durban just hosted the 2015 Tourism Indaba. Now, as you know, our country has been battling the resurgence of xenophobic violence, which reportedly started in Durban. So this week, we asked the CEO of SA Tourism, Thulani Nzima, how this tragic turn of events impacted the Indaba, and we also look at the overall state of our tourism industry. As always, we welcome your thoughts throughout the program. You can do so on Facebook. It's at Interface on SABC2, or you can find us on Twitter. Our handles are at Interface on SABC or at Thembi Samachele. First up, though, let's take a quick look at this insert compiled by Zama Buthelezi.
South Africa's tourism has emerged as the country's fastest growing sector and is now the third largest contributor to GDP. The weaker rand currency has also contributed by making the country a relatively cheap destination for international visitors. The tourism industry has grown steadily since the 2010 World Cup, directly and indirectly generating 9.7% of South Africa's GDP in 2013. But the recent outbreak of xenophobic attacks threatened the tourism industry. The attacks on migrants prompted countries like China, United Kingdom, and Australia to issue travel warnings for South Africa. Local tour operators and tourism businesses also raised concerns that the attacks will affect the country's reputation as an idyllic destination. They also feared the loss of potential income derived from tourism. The unrest also strained relations between South Africa and other African countries. But the government and the tourism authorities moved swiftly to address the situation and allay fears, especially ahead of last week's Tourism Indaba in Durban. At least 24 countries participated in the event. With most visitors to South Africa coming from around the continent, government is looking at ways of ensuring that the Africans feel welcomed and safe. Figures show that African tourists account for more than 60% of visitors, with nearly 700,000 coming on holiday in December last year. According to the World Economic Forum, South Africa needs to work on safety and security in order to improve its tourism-friendly ratings. Protecting coastlines and biodiversity is also crucial in attracting tourism. Zama Buthelezi for Interface at SABC.
We welcome now the CEO of SA Tourism, Mr. Thulani Nzima, to talk to us a little bit more about this. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good evening, Thembi.
So most visitors that come to South Africa are from other African countries. And as you well know, there was the uproar around the xenophobic attacks that we saw, and they reportedly started in Durban. What kind of backlash have you noticed as a result of the xenophobia?
Well, firstly, it is true that the bulk of our tourism comes from the rest of Africa. But also, insofar as the Indaba is concerned and the xenophobic attacks that started in Durban, I'm glad to say that as a country, we reacted quite swiftly and contained whatever sporadic incidents of violence against foreigners was there. Indaba went on very well. Your insert indicates that we had good support from the rest of Africa. In fact, we had a total of 20 African countries exhibiting here. All the SADC countries were at Indaba. It was earlier reported that Mozambique was not going to be present.
Yes, I was going to ask about that.
Well, I think technically Mozambique was at Indaba because what they did was not to bring the Mozambican Tourism Authority to have a Mozambican stand, but their products were in fact in South Africa to exhibit. Secondly, their Minister of Tourism sent their representatives to be part of the ministerial conference, which was hosted by our minister. And throughout the conference, they were quite comfortable. I had a chat to some of them when we were at the ministerial dinner. They actually regretted not having been here, because for the past 20 years, Mozambique has participated at Indaba.
But isn't it symbolic then that they didn't have a stand? Doesn't that say something?
Well, I think it's a mistake on their side. It's something that they regret, something that they shouldn't even have pronounced on, because Mozambique is so close to South Africa that they should understand the issues that we are dealing with. You know, when you look around Africa in general, and I would even dare say globally, some of these incidents that happen that affect tourism are common. If you look at what has been happening in our continent, if we all reacted in the way that some of the countries reacted, it would have been bad for the continent. Let me give you an example. If you look around, there is, in Nigeria, there's Boko Haram. Then we had Ebola in the West Africa. Kenya has been beset by its own challenges of its security coming from what they see as terrorism. So then there was this small issue in South Africa. So in general terms, it's about time that those sober-minded people have to stand up and say, in spite of what is happening in Kenya, we want to go there and support the Kenyans. That's what we're calling for in South Africa. And in fact, most of the African countries responded correctly, saying, in spite of this, we want to be there.
Yet the number of buyers, we're told, were less than previous years.
Yeah, the number of buyers were less than last year, admittedly. But let's put that into context as well. It's a combination of a variety of things. We are yet to receive confirmation of buyers who didn't come to South Africa because they feared for their safety based on the xenophobic attack. But the complexity of buyers lies in the fact that, firstly, there are a lot of companies that are consolidating. When you talk of a buyer, let's first understand that a buyer represents an organization.
Right.
So organizations have been consolidating. You have seen a lot of big entities in Europe merging and buying each other. So with that, what used to happen in the past was you would normally have had about 4 people coming representing one organization. They have now cut it down to 2. This is an economic decision. Also, when they merge, they no longer send the 4 people. They now send only 2 to represent the same entities that have consolidated. Okay. There's also an economic reality about it. A lot of them are not comfortable with the fact that when you go to KwaZulu-Natal during Indaba, you are forced to book your accommodation for 3 nights. They could be there for 2 nights because Indaba has now been cut to 2 nights. So in reality, it hits South African products as well. It hits South African buyers as well. So it's not all attributable to xenophobia.
So
really.
Are you telling us as South Africans then that regardless of the xenophobia, regardless of the travel advisories that some of the countries like China and the UK and Australia issued because of the xenophobia, your tourism was not affected?
No.
And the Indaba was not affected?
No, not by xenophobia. If it was affected, it would have been affected by general economic conditions such as what I'm sharing with you. But also, I was saying earlier on that you look at Africa beset by certain challenges such as Boko Haram, the tourism in Kenya, and Ebola. But the global space is the same as well. I mean, how many times have aeroplanes been plunged into buildings and pilots taking the aircraft down? So if you are the type of person who will react irrationally when things like that are happening, actually you won't travel. So the global village has come to realize that these things are not just isolated to particular countries because they are weak in certain ways, but it is a global trend.
Okay.
Not too long ago, Europe was dealing with volcanic ash.
All right.
And all these kind of things that we supported them.
I'm going to ask that we pick up on this point just after this break. We're back after this. Welcome back. We're talking tourism this week on Interface, and of course we are welcoming your thoughts on what you think of the state of our tourism industry and whether or not you think that the recent xenophobic attacks did have an impact on our tourism numbers. Do give us your thoughts on Facebook at Interface on SABC2 or on Twitter at Interface on SABC or at Tembisa Magele. And tonight we are in conversation with Mr. Thulani Nzima, who is the CEO of SA Tourism. So the World Economic Forum has just released its rankings for travel and tourism, the competitiveness index, and South Africa has been ranked 48th out of 141 countries. That's quite good because we moved from position 64. We must be doing something right. What is it?
Well, indeed, we are doing something very right. Some of the things that we're doing are very basic, like, for instance, the repackaging of the country in terms of its offering on the tourism side. For far too long, we've been known as a safari destination, but now we're beginning to articulate ourselves differently as a destination that offers much more than safari. We're beginning to talk about our heritage and culture, our lifestyle, and recently we launched the Madiba-inspired tourist attractions, which help as well in giving people an opportunity to walk on the footsteps of Madiba. But we are also a country that offers value for money. We are not talking about the value for money in the sense that we are a cheap destination. South Africa offers tourist experiences that are suited for every budgetary requirement. If you want something very, very affordable, we will give you that rather than discounting the value of the destination. But if you want to spoil yourself, we also have experiences that are suited for that. But also, South Africa is a destination with diverse offerings, and we talk, as I have indicated to you, safari and adventure tourism. All of these kind of things are what has now pushed South Africa to where it is now, position number 48. And we think we can still do better. Our infrastructure helps us as well, because these are some of the things that are measured in the metrics of things that are being considered when you look at the rankings.
But then the World Economic Forum said that it's warning that our tightening of visa policy and immigration laws in South Africa could actually pull us backwards. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you look at the basket of the various things that the competitiveness study will look at, it will indeed touch on your immigration laws.
Yes.
And it will also look at how friendly your country is in terms of investments, how to deal with tax and the repatriation of money. But the issue of our immigration laws, I think the good news for us is the fact that whilst we recently launched new immigration regulations, the President has called for a review of all the immigration regulations. It is good because it forces us to work as a collective, as a team, so that we get to understand the impact of the new immigration regulations on tourism.
But you've got WEF saying exactly that. We're looking at your immigration laws and we're saying what you're proposing and what you're doing now is actually going to hit you backwards in the near future.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, we've had them. And that's the reason why we're reviewing the laws. If we didn't know that this is going to impact on our position, then now we know, and we are taking the correct steps to deal with that. In fact, it's very interesting because whilst we are tightening our immigration regulations, other countries are loosening them up because they have realized the value of tourism. Countries like the US, the UK, and Germany are beginning to open up a lot more for Chinese and Indian tourists traveling there because they spend a lot of money, they stay a little longer in their countries. So these are some of the things that we need to understand, that tourists have got options out there. They can't just want to come to South Africa, whether it is based on the cost or the bureaucracy that we're putting when they are applying for visas to come to our country, or it is about the turnaround time. They will go elsewhere.
So if we do not relax our immigration laws slightly, are you saying, therefore, that it is going to negatively impact on the tourism numbers?
Well, it will, because, I mean, it's a common sense issue. When other countries that you're competing with go the other way around, when you yourself are getting a little bit tighter.
But we are. So are you saying government is misguided?
I'm saying if we don't do anything about it, yes, it may impact on our tourism. So it's about time that we do it.
So government has been misguided in the way that they've been doing it currently?
I wouldn't say government has been has been misguided. If you look at the immigration regulations, there is merit why they embark on particular regulations. Let me just deal with both of them. The first one is the unabridged birth certificate for children under the age of 18. It is intended to curb the trafficking of human beings, and especially children. Now, there's no country that will stand out there and say we don't care about the trafficking of people, at least, especially through our country.
Okay.
Then the second one is the biometric requirement. It is a security requirement that globally everybody feels very comfortable. You get into the plane, you want to feel that the person sitting next to you is a genuine traveler and has no other intentions. There are different ways of dealing with both issues, by the way. So that is the reason why I'm saying to you, it is correct that if you do not review this, we may have missed the opportunity because other countries worry about the same things,
Sure,
but they do it differently.
Okay, we have to take another short break. Remember that you can give us your thoughts at any time of the show on our social media pages, so do so. And if you've just joined us, we're talking to the CEO of SA Tourism, Mr. Thulani Nzima, and we are wrapping up our conversation and also taking your thoughts on social media. So in 2013, when we spoke to you last, you were very passionate about a campaign that you were rolling out, which was to try and get us as South Africans to explore our country, so domestic tourism. How is that campaign going?
Well, it remains very important that South Africans better start enjoying their own country. Yes, the campaign is going well. We launched a campaign called Nothing's More Fun Than a Short Left. The aim was really to get South Africans excited about it. And where we are now, we have been checking to see what traction are we getting out of it. It's looking good, but we're still not getting a lot of South Africans traveling. And part of the reason is what you have seen in the past. We immediately had a very protracted platinum belt strike. It was followed by a few other strikes in the country. The country revised its GDP growth down as a result of that. Unemployment numbers are up. So
we don't have money to just explore.
You don't have money, but we are not relenting on our objective to get you as South Africans excited about your own country. What we are doing, we are working with the industry to make sure that we can create packages that are affordable. If you go to our Mzansi website, you will find very, very exciting and affordable packages there. Going forward, we are also getting additional money to focus on marketing domestic tourism. So what we've decided to do with this money is to divide it into two. Firstly, to focus on cultivating a culture of tourism among South Africans. There's no point in trying to get South Africans to travel when mentally they are not ready for it. So we need to inculcate that culture with them. The second part of it will be the conversion. Conversion, you find that there are people who are already traveling. They are ready to convert from being a business traveler into a leisure traveler. So our main objective is really to get people to travel more for leisure, take short left, you don't have to go very far, and to get South Africans away from this mentality that going on holiday means you have to be on the aeroplane and go elsewhere outside of the country. There's a lot that this country is offering, and it is affordable.
So let's talk a little bit about the numbers, that the tourism numbers that we're getting from Stats SA. The last numbers we got were in the first quarter of 2014, and then it was quiet, and then we got the numbers now in April. Why was there such a delay in the release of those numbers?
Well, that has been a very unfortunate thing that has happened. Yes, it started in 2013, actually. The last quarter of 2013, we had some delays. And then, as you correctly put it, in 2014, we started off just receiving the first quarter. I don't know whether to say the good news or the bad news, but then the final numbers for 2014 were released just a week before Indaba.
And that looked very suspect, I've got to tell you. The fact that we had no numbers, and then just before Indaba, we got the numbers. It looked suspect.
Well, I think for us as South African tourism, the disadvantage we will have in a situation like that is that we haven't had an opportunity to interact with the numbers, to analyze them, and to be comfortable that what is being reported is actually correct. And we're not challenging the numbers that are being given to us. The numbers show a growth of 6.6%, just under 10 million tourists that came to the country. And last year, we also had a good growth. So from that point of view, it's okay. But we are a little bit detailed. We'd like to check every continent and every country where we are marketing to see if these numbers, in fact, tally and match up to what we've been marketing. So we are engaging Stats SA as the custodian of numbers in the country to make sure that we can improve on this situation. We have already asked Minister to get involved and talking to his counterpart about it, and that process is already underway.
Okay, and just before we close, I mean, you took over the reins at SA Tourism in 2012 in January. You had a lot of plans and a lot of things that you wanted to do. What would you say you've been able to contribute or to bring to SA Tourism? Not just as an organization, but to the country's tourism?
Well, I think if you look at the numbers that we have been growing, it's testimony of the fact that we have been doing something good. The second thing is the way we have been marketing the country. We have focused a lot more on digital marketing, and which is the way to talk to today's tourist and tomorrow's traveler. We have also made sure that we right-size our markets properly. We responded to emerging markets where the opportunity was, and when our traditional markets were shrinking, we had to quickly change our strategy there. Recently, we've been opening new offices. We opened the Brazilian office at the end of last year. We also opened the West African office in Nigeria, and this year we are looking at the possibility of opening another one in Angola and possibly Kenya as well. So
has it been difficult to operate in Nigeria, because we hear that there's tensions between Nigeria and South Africa?
Well, nothing that affected us. What we dealt with are normal bureaucratic challenges, processes that you will follow in any country where you're going, but nothing that really one would say it was targeting South Africa as a result of tensions that may exist. We believe that we actually had a good relationship where the Minister of Tourism in Nigeria actively assisted us, even assigning people to help us, because it was very important. We do have a very cordial relationship. Okay. And we have positioned that office very correctly as a hub for the West African market, not just for Nigeria.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thank you for coming through to talk to us, and may you keep growing from strength to strength. Mr. Tulani Nzima, the CEO of SA Tourism. That's where we leave it for this evening. Do make sure that you join us next week at the same time for Interface.